Sorry we're a little late, but nevertheless we're here. My name is Rod Cookrow. I am the chairman of Gen Alexandria this year, and I want to thank you all for coming, both here live and also people who are streaming with us. As you may know, this year we're doing something a little different. We're actually making people pay to experience our programs. We need that because we have to pay for this space. We have to pay for our wonderful executive director, and not to mention the great team of technicians in the back. That includes students from Alexandria City High School who do our audio and visual. This marks the 25th year of programming by Gen Alexandria. Over time, we've changed a lot. We had to adapt during the pandemic, and we're now in a position where we do both streaming and live programming. I want to report to those of you who are interested, and our members in particular, that we just signed a contract tonight to be in this space, the Lyceum, for this entire season going into May of next year. So all programs will be here. We're not going to be moving back and forth between this place and the Masonic Memorial. We will be here at the Lyceum, and they were kind enough to give us a discount this year over last year. So I want to thank the City of Alexandria, but in particular Pat Miller, our executive director, who negotiated that. Thank you, Pat. Before we begin our panel, I'd be remiss not to recognize the people who've been primarily helping us get started with our funding for this year. If you go to our webpage, there are different levels of funding, from platinum sponsors down to students. Our platinum sponsors, which are the highest level that people give a lot of money, are Simpson Development, McInerney Associates, and the Zebra. We have gold sponsors that include Marion Moon, Dottie and Val Hawkins, Linda and Steve App, Chris Lewis, and Ricardo Alfaro, who was just up here speaking before. And we have a list of sustaining members that include Act for Alexandria, Lauren Bishop Holmes, Janet Barrett, Henry Brooks, Christopher Brown, Roy Bird, John Woods and Donna Kramer, Darylyn Franklin, Kenneth Gray, Mary Harris, Connie Hart, Tim Laderack, Walter Howell, David McClure, David Millard, Carosi and Diana Ryan, David Speck, Vanguard, Mark Williams, and Robert Whittle. For all of your help, whether you're at that level or just a $50 family membership, it helps a lot to keep us frankly in business. We do not want to be in a position where we stop having live programming. We could just go to all streaming, as a lot of nonprofits have done, but we think it's more important to have the ability to meet in person, for you to talk to each other at a reception that precedes these meetings, and then after the meeting's over, to talk to the panelists live. I know these panelists, like most we've had, will be happy to stay afterwards and ask questions and maybe argue with you. One more thing I want to say, because at our last meeting in May, which was on crime, there were several people here who thought this was a public meeting sponsored by the City of Alexandria. We're not that. We're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We're a private organization. We're glad people are here who care about the city issues, but you're not entitled to be here and interrupt the meeting. If you do that, we will find someone to take you out of the room, because we want to keep these discussions civil and bring more light than heat to the discussion of things that we bring to you. Just previewing next month's program, it's going to be on a little thing called zoning for housing, you might have heard of. And I expect that will be, we have a great panel lined up for it, and I suspect we'll have a good attendance for that. And then in November, we're having a program on potential changes in the way we conduct our elections in the city. A whole range of things, from staggering terms for school board members to going to nonpartisan elections, to changing our elections back to May from November for city council. But we're going to have people here who are experts on that to talk about what that could do to make the city's governance a little more accessible for people like you. So I'm going to give it up now to Mary Harris, who's on our board. And Mary has put together this panel and has framed the questions. Oh, and one more thing I want to say. The topic is, what can we do about climate change here in the city? There's been some social media debate's a kind word this week, about what we're doing tonight. We've had comments such as, well, what about India? Who's going to talk about China? And I know that they're all problems in terms of carbon, but I've tried to say to these people, remember in the 70s, there was this popular slogan that at a time when these issues were not political, it was think globally, act locally. What can you do? What can you do at home? I mean, don't worry about the world. What can you do? And that's what I try to tell people who are upset that we're not having someone from the Chinese embassy to argue about climate change. That's not what we do here. We're about Alexandria issues. So we'll do the best we can, but if any of you out there want to challenge these panelists about what China's not doing and why it matters what they think we should do here, by all means, have at it. Anyway, thank you for coming. Let's enjoy our evening. Let's have a good program. Mary, up to you.
Thank you, Rod, and welcome everyone. I'm Mary Harris on the Agenda Alexandria Board. I live in North Old Town. As Rod mentioned, all of us are volunteers. And just a minute before we get started, this doesn't happen without a whole volunteer team. You already met Ricardo Alfaro, but Ginny Franco and Diane Casey, who are here, have manned or womaned our registration, which was wonderful. We have other board members who are here, and I want to thank them. We have David McClure, we have Velma Zaffron, and Evelyn Rivas is our videographer tonight from Alexandria City High School. So thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it. I've handed out these so that you can read the bios of our speakers. Tonight's topic, hot, wet, and wild. Did you all think it was that this summer? I think so. And so we're not here to discuss whether climate change is happening, but what kinds of solutions are there to protect our city and the places we love. And I'm going to introduce, and go in this order, Ryan Freed, who is the city's first Climate Action Officer. We actually have that. This is a brand new office, and he's going to tell us a little bit about it. We have Rose Stevens Booker, who's the Director of State Mobilization for the Building Decarbonization Coalition. And Rose has a long career in sustainability and also in energy efficiency. And she was on the Energy and Climate Change Action Plan Task Force here in Alexandria, as was I. Pandemic fun. And finally, we have Kathy Hoekstra, who should be no stranger to anyone here. She is the chairman of Alexandria's Environmental Policy Commission, and we're going to hear from each of them. So I'm going to start off and not make too much ado about climate change, because I think we probably can all agree that we're experiencing some of it here. We've had flooding, we've had heat, we're worried about what is going on in our own city and wondering what can we do about it. And so I'm going to start off with Ryan, who's the new head of, well, first of all, you're the first City Climate Action Officer, and he heads the new office. And Ryan, can you tell us about the Alexandria Office of Climate Action? Sure. Not climate change, you can't change it, but climate action. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Office of Climate Action is new. Council authorized it in late 2022, and for this fiscal year, for last fiscal year, we're in a new one now. Thank you. We were cobbled together from a lot of different departments in the city, and I think that's an important thing to understand, that the Office of Climate Action is new, but climate action in the city is not. We have had a lot of climate champions in the city, and many of them got moved over into this new office. So we have an energy manager, we have a sustainability coordinator, we have an energy management analyst, and we have a green building manager. All of those positions came from the Department of General Services, Planning and Zoning, and the Transportation and Environmental Services Department. So all of those departments were already taking a lot of action on climate, and they helped centralize that over in the Office of Climate Action as a part of the city manager's office. The council also approved 2 new positions, the Climate Action Officer, which is my position, and then a Public Affairs, a Communications position. We're still currently hiring this position. The position is titled the Community Engagement and Climate Justice Manager. So we're hoping to have that position hired here in the next month or so. So we spread out in terms of what we focus on. We work on city facilities, we work with the business community, we work with residents and homeowners and tenants, and all throughout the community to really figure out how we can start taking those personal actions. The things you see on the screen here were done through the Energy and Climate Change Action Plan. Thank you, Rose and Mary, for helping put that together. But this tells us what has to happen in Alexandria to meet our goals. But I think the important thing that I want to get across about the Office of Climate Action is these are important goals. Our greenhouse gas emission reductions are important, but what I want people to focus on is what is happening in Alexandria. So the thing I keep repeating to people is we can talk about greenhouse gas emissions all day long, and we can talk about what moves the needle on greenhouse gas emissions. But what I want people to realize is that people died this summer because it was too hot. It was the largest contributor to deaths from climate is heat. It's not major storms, it's heat. So it's too hot and people are dying. People are making choices to turn off their air conditioning because it's too expensive, and they're risking heat stroke. They're risking death because it's too hot. That's a real issue that we need to focus on in Alexandria. That's a climate issue. That's the kind of thing that I want people to understand, and why we have an Office of Climate Action and why it's intentionally named the Office of Climate Action. So we're excited to be working with all of you, excited to be here to talk to you and take your questions today. And we have a great group of people that we work with pretty regularly as well.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. I just got a little note from our president. We have 3x5 cards over here at the desk. If you have a question for any of the panelists, someone will come around and pick up your cards and we will ask them. Ryan, before I introduce Rose and Kathy, I'd just like to ask you, where do Alexandria's sort of climate emissions or greenhouse gas emissions come from in the city? What are they?
The vast majority of climate emissions in Alexandria and in the rest of the country are from our built environment. So the buildings, where you're living, where you're playing, where you're worshiping, where you're enjoying nice events like this, they have huge contributions to climate change, to greenhouse gas emissions. We use electricity, we use gas to heat the spaces, and that's the biggest contributor that we have. A lot of people are surprised by that because we think cars, tailpipe emissions is probably pretty big, and it is, and we need to deal with that. But buildings are the largest contributor that we have to that. And this is why it's so important to have events like this, because all of you can take action. If you look up there, 53 housing units have to be retrofitted by 2030 just to meet our goals, just to meet Alexandria's goals. This is not like super aggressive in terms of how far we can go with climate. That's 53,000. That's a lot of housing units. That's a lot of spaces that need to be retrofit, but that will have a huge impact on climate in Alexandria and climate broadly. It'll also make our homes more resilient. It'll make us have cheaper bills. It'll make it more affordable to live here. So buildings are the biggest thing that we can focus on. And after that, it's transportation. Reinvesting in our public transit, looking at our bikeways and bike lanes, making sure that everyone knows that you can hop on the dash bus to get here tonight for free and you can take it back to go home. Those kinds of investments that the city is making are important and great and have the biggest impact of moving the needle.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. We've given out little sheets, a cheat sheet I'm going to call it, that gives you some idea of the scale of actions that if we wanted to get to net zero, and this is an aspirational goal of the city, which we hope will be actualized, you'll be able to see what's involved right here. So everybody has that. Rose, hi. She wants a pen.
Yeah. Hello.
So,
good evening. Woo.
Rose and I were members of the Energy and Climate Action Plan Task Force. Did I get it all on there? I think we did. And but Rose has a very, very long career, and you can see some of it on the back of our tableau here. But you've been involved in sustainability. You've worked within government for both EPA, the Department of Energy, and now you're with something called the Building Decarbonization Coalition. Rose, what is Building Decarbonization, and what does your organization do? Is it connected?
Oh, of course, absolutely. And it connects really well to what Ryan just said. Building decarbonization essentially is reducing or removing human-made greenhouse gas emissions from the built environment. Most of our greenhouse gases can be contributed to energy use, building construction, methane emissions, and there's one other one that escapes me, excuse me, my evening brain. But we work in all of those various capacities to help the removal and reduction of emissions at large. Now, what the Building Decarbonization Coalition does is we utilize our coalition grassroots type of, ground up movements in order to affect policy, behavior change, market transformation, research, all of the above. What the Building Decarbonization does overall is utilize those various resources. We have teams in consumer engagement, policy acceleration, market transformation, to really help to mobilize state work to help with the change within the built environment. Again, fighting for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. My role in particular for state mobilization is to really get a lay of the land of any state that might have what I like to call a perfect storm, whether it's political climate, whether constituency demand, whether it's, oh my gosh, finally utilities coming on board with efficiency programs or whatnot. It's like a perfect storm of all of these different elements that says we are ready to engage and move in a building decarbonization movement. Then we work with key stakeholders and we build this coalition that helps to reinforce and engage our political leadership and key stakeholders in order to affect change.
That's great. Rose, I think I looked it up, I Googled earlier today, that there are 33 states that now have climate action plans and over 600 local governments, which would be cities, counties, townships, whatever. So obviously, the Building Decarbonization Coalition has a lot to do.
A lot more gains to win. And I think, what we really try to do is we look at the landscape of the nation and we say, okay, what are the top producing states that utilize gas infrastructure, and how can we mobilize in those places? I think we look at the top 60% of state-influenced gas infrastructure usage, and we try to tackle that. It's a very targeted approach, and we know if we get those gains and those big gains first, we'll be able to make an impact in, let's say, some harder, more maybe purple, more red maybe states that would take a little bit more challenges to really move the ball.
What are the things that building owners, homeowners, anyone can do to, quote, decarbonize or to retrofit? What is that? What do I do?
So I love and I hate this question. Because I'm a new homeowner. My husband and I, we just bought a house, and it's freaking overwhelming, right? Like, apart from just signing your name on this dotted line and giving a lot of your money away, now you want me to take on this huge upfront capital investment, and I don't know really where to start. I kind of try to take from my lived experience and piecemeal it. It can be something as simple as when an appliance is at the end of its life cycle, you're going to upgrade to something that's more efficient. We're going to utilize the tools and resources that federal governments, states, utility efficiency programs have put in place to help us do that. So we look for the Energy Star sign on our programmable thermostat, on our refrigerator, on our now heat pump dryer. We learn about the new technologies that are ever changing, but are at our fingertips to help with this transition. And I would say most importantly, we start to tackle the envelope of our home, something as essential as making sure that our windows and our doors and all the insulation is upgraded, modernized, and closed up, because anything that we put in there, we need to be efficient about our use case. It can be small, it can be large, but from anyone from a homeowner to a renter, try and take those incremental behavior step changes, and it doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Oh, thank you so much, Rose. I want to move to Kathy. Kathy Hoekstra is, as I mentioned, the chair of our Environmental Policy Commission, and I think it even mentioned this a little bit in her bio, she is someone who has taken action. She is an action lady down there. So I'm going to ask you, Kathy, first of all, you've been a longtime activist for climate action. I want you to tell us a little bit about Alexandria's Environmental Policy Commission. Some people may not know that we have one, and what you've been doing sort of to shape the climate action agenda in Alexandria and also our environmental action plan to which it's connected. And then tell us about the actions that you've taken in your own home.
So first of all, thank you everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate you being here. And whether you know it or not, everybody here tonight is affected by the climate crisis. So it can affect your health, your finances, everything else. So, and hopefully before you leave this evening, you'll know a lot of things that you can do to help combat the climate crisis. And it doesn't just spending money, it's a variety of other things. And maybe you'll figure out how to get some of that tax money that goes to the government and the state in return for taking some of these actions. So, and you know, I'm am an activist. I moved to Alexandria in 1991. I was just counting up the years now and dumbfounded that I've been here for over 30 years. I didn't quite realize that till I counted it up. And so, you know, I've learned all of the beautiful things that I love about Alexandria. And you know, I think it would be horrible if we lost our beautiful waterfront, if a lot of people had to move because of flooding issues. If more and more people, as Ryan said, we lose because of the heat islands and how that affects things. Everybody is getting asthma and worse allergies because of the climate crisis. We're going to get more communicable diseases as well. So, you know, we really have to step up and act now, and the government is in a position to help you. So, as far as the EPC is concerned, I joined the EPC, about 4 or 5 years ago, before the pandemic. Everybody rates everything as to before or after the pandemic. And I became chair shortly after I joined. We have 13 members, and we're a very active commission since I've been chair. So our charter is to advise the city council and the city manager and the planning commission where appropriate on all things to do with the environment. So we were, I think, one of the people that pushed really hard to create the Office of Climate Action. The city manager came up with a fund of about $2 million a number of years ago, and the EPC sat down during its annual meeting and said, okay, how would we, you know, if it was up to us, where would we spend $2 million? What would we do? So we said, well, number one, we got to create a climate action officer to leave the office. We've got to do a communication person to come out and do outreach with the community to explain to people what the problem is and how to fix it. So we did that. And then we came up with a series of other things. And we pushed city council very hard to do that. And ultimately, you know, we're successful. We're also working to change our green building policy because it's just not adequate now. As it says up there, I think, 95% of all the new buildings should be net zero, meaning that the amount of energy they use is equal to the amount of energy they produce. In other words, let's put solar panels on everything and create our own energy. Because, you know, the great thing about solar is you don't have to pay a fuel cost. The sun is free. So we, you know, created, or the EPC created the Environmental Action Plan in 2018. That's kind of our Bible, so to speak, of what we follow. And we take actions in response to that and are trying to reduce our pollution levels by 50% by 2030. As far as me personally is concerned, I had the pleasure of, in 2017, of going to Al Gore's climate reality training for 2.5 days, where I learned everything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask about the climate crisis. That motivated me, and I said, okay, I've got to do something really big. And I had been struggling before that of fighting against Dominion and all of its misinformation and disinformation with the state legislators. And I said, okay, I've got to do something on my own. So I explored getting solar panels for my house and did do that in 2018. My bills are now $7 a month, and they have been ever since I put the panels on my house. So that's what we mean about net energy, or zero net energy. So I did that. I joined the EPC in 2019. That was free. As far as the solar panels are concerned, yes, that did cost money. But I had saved up a bunch of money for a new car, and so I ended up financing the car and spending the cash on the panels. So I didn't, have to finance those. And I also got the 30% tax credit from the federal government, and that's 30% off the top of what you're paying in taxes. So it's a large sum of money. Let's see. In addition to that, I got an induction burner because I knew eventually I would get rid of my gas stove to test it out and see whether I liked it. I was raised on a gas stove. I've had a gas stove, virtually my entire life. I have no interest in going back to gas. I love my induction burner, and I'm looking forward to getting a new induction stove in the very near future. Then this summer I did air sealing and insulation in my attic, and once again enjoyed a tax credit from the federal government for that. And lastly, I took the pledge to convert every one of my gas appliances when they come due and my vehicle to electric, and I would encourage everybody else to do the same.
Wow. I don't even have enough money to get a new car. But that's amazing. Kathy, you live in the West End. Rose, you're in Seminary Hills. Ryan, Rosemont. And I'm in North Old Town. So we have a wide variety. Single-family home, townhome, single-family home, single-family condo. All right, so there's a lot of variety of experience here, and probably all of us are wondering what the answer to this question is. Where's the money? Can you tell us if there is any, are there any incentives or grants to help homeowners retrofit with energy efficiency upgrades? We've heard about tax credits. I'm going to punt that maybe to Ryan first, and anybody else can go on, but where's the money if someone wants to do this, or if a condominium wants to get together and maybe change out their gas stoves or something?
Yeah, so there is some money. Kathy has talked about the tax credits and the incentives that are available from the federal government. I'm going to let her, because I think she has a lot of information on that to share. But the city has a couple, and the Commonwealth does as well. So the thing to keep in mind is thinking about where these programs fit. One of the things we're doing at the Office of Climate Action is trying to figure out where people are that can access some of these programs. So the Commonwealth has run a program that's funded by the federal government for a really long time called the Weatherization Assistance Program. That program provides those that are income qualified the ability to get their home retrofit with energy retrofits. It's the air sealing, insulation, the important things, making sure that that envelope is sealed around the house, and then they can go to do some more of the mechanical systems in the house. Alexandria has not been a big user of that program. The people in Alexandria haven't known about it. They haven't been signing up for it. I think one of the recent years we had 3 in the city that did weatherization. So that's a program that we really have to make sure that our friends and our neighbors and everyone else know about so we can take advantage of that. If you don't qualify for that, you might qualify for the Energy Masters program. Energy Masters is great. It's also income qualified, but it comes in, it does similar things. It doesn't go as far as weatherization, but it helps with a lot of that air sealing. And one of the really important things about Energy Masters is it's also a volunteer program. So if you're looking for a way to start getting involved in this, you can go get trained on how to use the caulking gun, how to go about air sealing a home. You can sign up with Energy Masters. They'll give you a training, and then you can go out and help improve the neighborhood yourself. So that's a really great program that's out there as well. City also has a couple of programs. They have a home energy efficiency loan program and a home rehabilitation loan program that can be used for energy improvements. Those, again, are income qualified. So you can look at the city's website to see whether you qualify for those. But if you know people that are qualified for those, take advantage of it as well. And then Dominion has some programs. Dominion has particularly a free solar program that is income qualified and age qualified. So if you meet their qualifications for income, or you have someone in the home that is, I think it's over 60, you can get free solar installed on the home. That is a program that's not very well subscribed to, but it's very easy to, and Dominion is there to provide it. So these are programs that are out there. You can take a look at them. And what I'm encouraging as the climate action officer is, don't just see the program and you don't qualify for it and forget about it. We want you to go out there and talk to others. We'll be launching some programs here in the near future to train you on these programs so you can go talk to your neighbors about this. But knowing these programs are out there and not being used should be a problem for you, because we can't hit 55,000 just by the people that hear me saying this. You have to go out there and talk to people too. So take these programs, take the information, go to your neighbors, go to your friends, go to your civic associations, and make sure everyone knows about the programs that are out there. Because the federal government has lots and lots of money that they have assigned to these programs, but they'll just keep it if they don't get used. So don't let that happen. Let's make sure that that money is being used. The Commonwealth is the same. There's a lot of people that can use these programs. Let's make sure people in Alexandria are getting advantage of that as well. It's great that people across the Commonwealth have access to tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's make sure that that Alexandrians are getting that access as well.
So that's great, Brian. So people in Alexandria can contact the Office of Climate Action, perhaps for resources and other ways to access these programs. Rose or Kathy, do you have anything to add in terms of money?
So I would encourage everybody to go to a website. It's called Rewiring America, REWIRING America. Or our energy.gov/save, and you will find very specific things regarding the money that you qualify for. So everybody gets $1,400 a year, up to $1,400 a year in savings or tax credits for anything that's related that uses gas. So it varies, but it's for vehicles, it's for appliances, it's everything else. And so, you can go on to Rewiring America. There's an IRA, Inflation Reduction Act calculator, and that will tell you exactly how much, after you answer about 5 questions like how many people in your household, how much money do you earn, are you a renter or do you own your home? A couple other questions. It will tell you, where you can save, where you can get tax credit monies to help pay for replacing a gas dryer or a hot water heater or a gas furnace or a gas stove, or doing insulation like I did, or upgrading an electric panel because you're getting a new hot water heater that's electric where you had gas in the past and you need a 240 volt versus 115. So I encourage you to go all those and find out. That's from the federal government, and those are the tax credits. Then you also have rebates that are coming probably the very end of this year, early next year, and they will be coming from the state, and those are income qualified. So low and middle income folks are the folks that qualify for those. They are generally larger amounts of money. And all you people here think, oh, well, I probably don't qualify for that. So I've got the sheet here of what in Alexandria, our nice, wealthy community of Alexandria, what it is. So it's for, so the folks that get the most money are folks that are 80% of the area median income. And then those folks that are up to 150% of the area median income, you get half the amount. So for instance, if you're gonna go and want to get a heat pump, and you are low income, you can get up to $8,000. If you are middle income, you can get up to $4,000 for replacing a gas furnace with a heat pump.
I think those are the kinds of things we can post on the website and make available to people so that you have it. And I'm sure that Ryan, your office will also have those kinds of things. Rose, did you want to mention anything about incentives, rebates, money?
Did a good job of rolling out the work I used to do at DOE, excuse me, sorry, too many. And she was really articulating two of the major programs within the Inflation Reduction Act, which are HERA and HOMES. HERA is a point of sale rebate incentive program, and HOMES is more for tax credits and long-term verification certification work. Rewiring America is a great tool. I know most of them. I was there when they were an org of 4 and have expanded. BDC is also coming out with extensive tools online for state engagement. We really try to work with the state at large to pull together something for their constituents. So I'm happy to send that on to Mary as well as you, Ryan. But please, I would say also just stay in touch with what's going on at the federal level, because even though these are census-tracked, income verified programs, there are, ranges and opportunities for most people. And, start with your breaker box and work out, I guess I would say, for sure.
That's great. And for people who don't know, I think the area median income here in Alexandria is somewhere around $108,000. So we're not talking,
Cool.
This is a high income area. So if you're 80% of that or 150% of that, you do the math. Pretty much a lot of our residents are in the money here. So
150% of the area median income for a family of 4 is $228,000 a year of income. So,
okay. So I
lots.
think these are great. And Ryan's office, the City of Alexandria Office of Climate Action, is a resource for most of this information. What I'd like to do at this point is to switch gears, even though buildings are a major focus, because I've got 5 questions here about Alexandria's favorite stuff, and that is trees. And so I've got 5 questions. I'm going to ask it. And I didn't see a mention of planting trees or preserving wetlands, which help reduce the impact of climate change on people, such as reducing heat islands, reducing the need for air conditioning, cooler streets. How is the city dealing with increasing our tree canopy or preserving it? Another person asks, how many 5-foot trees are required to place one 50-foot mature tree, which provides lots of benefits? And I know this is part of our environmental action plan. So this is both, really a comfort issue. There's a related question. How many people died or went to the hospital from heat this summer that live in heat islands around our city? So I'm going to toss that first to you, Ryan. Trees. And then to Kathy.
I support trees. I'm a big fan. So the city is taking trees seriously. We recently, they were authorized and have been hiring new urban forestry positions to making sure that we have more people in the city who can help us do this, make sure that we understand where are our trees and where do we need to put them. Our office is working on the next phase of a heat vulnerability assessment in partnership with a couple of local universities. That will help us identify areas where we need to target and actions we need to take. So the city has tree canopy goals. They're moving forward. This is not the Office of Climate Action that does this. Our Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Activities Office, as well as some of the Transportation and Environmental Services Office, works on the tree canopy, but we'll be helping in terms of where we should be focusing on this. One of the important things, though, to keep in mind is that a tree is a long-term investment in heat vulnerability and in heat mitigation and climate mitigation. It's not going to solve the problem today. We're not going to be able to plant our way out of a heat crisis in Alexandria. So we have to be talking about how we adapt to it now and make sure that we have resilience hubs and places for people to go when it gets too hot. The trees are definitely an investment that we need to make, and the city is taking very seriously. But it's also, a reality that we're not going to plant a 5-foot tree today and it be a 50-foot tree tomorrow. So we can't plant our way to a cooler Alexandria. We have to figure out what we do about the fact that it's hotter in the summers. So we are taking trees and the canopy seriously. We have an amazing recreation, parks, and cultural activities office. If you've had the opportunity to enjoy Alexandria, you'll know it's a really small footprint, 15.6 square miles of space, but we have a lot of parks in this city and a lot of space out there. So the city takes this very seriously. We know that part of what makes Alexandria vibrant is having beautiful spaces outside, and we want to make sure that people are out there to enjoy it. So the Urban Forestry Office, the group that's putting that together, is looking at increasing the tree canopy, and they have their own goals there.
That's great. And Kathy, we have a 40% tree canopy goal, I think it is, in the city of Alexandria, our environmental action plan.
Yeah, and when the EPC was working with stream restoration this last couple of years, I got to know a number of tree stewards, members of the community that are very interested in preserving trees. And I came across something the other day about a big grant that was being handed out by somebody, can't tell you who, don't remember, but I immediately forwarded it to my 2 contacts that were involved with me on stream restoration, said, hey, do you know about this? And they were like, so I got an immediate response, no, but we're on it. So, it is something, that happens all the time. So I may be mainly focused on buildings and transportation, but I always have all these other issues, whether it be concerned about plastic or more trees or artificial turf or whatever it is. There are people out in the community that have raised those issues with me, and I know they've become experts in it, and so I just immediately forward the information to them and encourage them
Great.
to go forward.
Well, we have about 15 minutes left in our program. Hasn't this been going fast? So what I want to do is some lightning rounds here because people have a lot of questions. And I'm going to start off with their next favorite thing after trees, which is cars. If I got an electric car, how can I get an electric car? How can I plug it in? Who's doing that? And what can the city do? We've got a lot of ambitious goals here, but the city can't do these things. Homeowners, car buyers, tree lovers need to do a lot of these things. Start with cars, electric vehicles. Where do we plug them in?
Great question. There are places, private groups that are putting them in. There's some new ones going on Mount Vernon Avenue here soon, and throughout the city. There is not enough public charging that's out there right now. It's just not accessible and not available. So the city is working. We have an EV readiness strategy and the Commonwealth's only electric vehicle planner. She started in January, and that's a part of the Office of Climate Action. So we're working very hard developing out charging infrastructure, figuring out where we need to place these and how and who has electric vehicles, who has access to electric vehicles and charging, and really making sure that we can figure this out. There are lots of places in the city where we don't have off-street parking. Those people can't plug into their house. So we need to figure out a place for them to get charging. So we're doing a lot of work figuring out where to target to place public charging and how to make this work, working with the Parks Office to see where we have park space and city-owned spaces where we can put public charging. It's not an easy thing to put up. It's not a quick thing to put up. Not only do we have to go through a procurement process, but it takes a while to put the utility infrastructure that needs to be there, make sure that it can take charging that's available. But we're also working with new developments as they come in. How can we encourage public charging to be a part of that as well, and making sure that everyone can be a part of this. So you can buy your cars, you should make sure that you have a place to charge. If you can't charge at your own home, if you don't have a driveway, you probably don't have access to charging overnight. So you need to figure out where you can do that. But we're working hard. We have an EV readiness strategy, and a key part of that was the EV planner. And the city's fleet is transitioning to all electric as well over time, and that will help us build out the more electric chargers around the city as well, so the electric fleet can charge.
That's great. I'm going to ask Rose the next question, and that is, we live in a condo, and what can condos do? Are there resources for them? No one homeowner, they can buy shades or they can get lights, but are there resources for condominium owners? So I'll start with Rose and then go to Ryan on that.
Well, I think there are a lot of things that you as an individual condominium owner can do. I think I I noted programmable thermostats. I know some condos, you own your own HVAC unit and some that you don't. So I'm going to speak to those who own their own HVAC unit. If you use your programmable thermostat, you're affecting your behavior change and at a long-term commitment. You're able to set temperatures when you're away. You're able to set temperatures when you're asleep and when you're awake to help minimize the energy use and demand on the grid at large. I think with condominiums, you can also have boards and co-ops. Sorry, I don't really know how all those things work. But you can utilize the government structures that are in place at large, I would say, in these buildings to help to motivate the owners or the landlords to be able to, at large, maybe upgrade their water heater. Who knows? You can upgrade it from a fossil fuel burning furnace to a more efficient water heater, and that affects every single owner in the entire building. Windows are a huge deal. That again talks to sealing your envelope. And then who knows? If you get into those walls and you see that their weatherization needs, tapping into some of those other state and federal resources to upgrade the envelope, again, the wall, insulation, all of those things. Lots of things.
That's great.
I would just add to that, be persistent and be social. If you're not on the board, you need to talk to your board, and you need to make sure that the condo board knows this is something you care about, and you need to get your neighbors to care about it. So find the thing that matters to them, whether if it's indoor air quality, talk to them about gas appliances and why those are unhealthy for you to have in your home. If it's about energy, if it's about climate, if it's about the environment, find the thing that matters, get your allies and talk to the condo board. And then be social. Get your condo board to talk to other condo boards, because this is where you can have conversations. We just had someone from a condo board come in and talk to us about leaf blowers and what can they do and how can they find someone who is using electric leaf blowers instead of gas leaf blowers and making sure they're using electric equipment instead of gas equipment. We said that city can't do that, but what we can do is tell you to talk to other condo associations and put RFPs together. If your condo is looking for lawn care services, so is someone else. Work together and use your purchasing power collectively to push the market in the right direction. The market's not going to change until consumers make it change. So that's where persistence and being social is so important in this, because I can't mandate that this stuff happens. The city cannot force this stuff to happen. So you have to figure that out. But condos have a great purchasing power, and that's where you can make a pretty big change. And if you make that change, those lawn companies are going to have the equipment. They're going to have the electric equipment. Those contractors, those HVAC contractors will have the heat pumps in stock. They'll know that that's what they're selling. So that'll affect everyone else that's not in a condo, because that stuff will be available. So use the power that you have to push the market to change.
Okay, that's great. There's a quick question. We're going to jump back in, because there's a lot of building questions. There's been a lot of residential new construction in the last 10 years, and there's about 4 or 5 related questions. Are those buildings already efficient? Do they need to be retrofitted too? Can new construction have wood-burning fireplaces or not? Gas stoves or not?
Kathy, answer the question first.
I knew this was going to happen. Yeah, so this is, something that the EPC has been pushing very hard, and that is trying to amend the green building policy, because if you're trying to get everybody to be much more energy efficient than they currently are, using our current state building code is not the way of doing it. It's really bad. I worked for a number of years with local environmental organizations to try to push the state legislature to change it. It turns out that there's an executive board that makes decisions about changing it, and it's got all these members, almost hundreds of members type of thing. That's probably a slight exaggeration, but anyway, lots and lots of members to it. And in order to get it to adopt the newest energy efficiency code, it has to be a unanimous decision. Well, come on, folks. It's like telling the U.S. Senate to have a unanimous decision, right? Doesn't happen very often. And so consequently, it doesn't get upgraded. So, then what can we do? Well, we can provide incentives to people, and we can change our current building codes here. We can also ask the legislature to give more authority to the city of Alexandria to change and have a more efficient building code, what they call stretch codes. So, requiring them to be net zero. Just, an aside, we had the Potomac River Generating Station. They came in and gave us a sustainability plan. We looked at it and said, I don't think so. Your math doesn't even add up. They kind of looked at us and we showed them a video that was fantastic, showing what they're doing in Philadelphia and New York about net zero buildings. And I think we kind of shamed them a bit. They said, let us go back to the drawing board and, try again. They came out with a new plan. It was head and shoulders above the older one. So, we can have an effect, and we are pushing the developers in that way. But, I said at a city council town hall, how come we get the farm team when it comes to developers, and New York and Philadelphia get the major leagues? Everybody laughed, thought it was very funny. I didn't really appreciate it, but okay. And so now we're trying to change the green building policy, and had conversations with Ryan about this, and I am very excited that this is going to happen by June of next year. But only if all of you folks encourage the city council to adapt what the staff comes up with. So that's another way you can all help.
Thank you. Yes,
Ella,
you can.
I'll just put it out there. If you invest in a new construction home and you buy it and it's wonderful and it smells all new and great, and you put a gas appliance in your home to emit methane and destroy your indoor air quality, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I think the question was, should I still have a wood-burning gas stove? Or I think that's what I heard. Well,
No, one was the wood-burning fireplace, and the other was a gas stove. Either.
I would say you're destroying your indoor air quality, which is going to affect your health in the long term and the health of your loved ones around you, particularly small and those with additional comorbidities. So I would second guess that.
There
I
you
got
go.
my induction burner and turned it off. I've got asthma, and so I was like, okay, we're not doing the gas
So
stove
that's
anymore.
great. Well, this is, obviously these are private investments. People are making their choices. Consumers pretty much rule when it comes to cars and other things. And I'm not going to be able to ask all the questions since we're coming right up on our time. But there's one that's been asked a couple of times, and these are pretty ambitious goals to get to net zero or to help people be more comfortable and energy efficient and cost effective in their homes and with their cars. Anyone would like to stop buying fuel. How will we know if we're getting there? How do we measure this? How are we reporting it? How do we know how we're doing? Who's
Well-
going to tell us?
That's a really good question, and I thank the Energy and Climate Change Action Plan Task Force for putting all of these really hard to measure metrics together for us. No, the Office of Climate Action is working with the rest of the city to figure out what are the ways that we can track these. The important thing is working with all of you to make sure that you're telling us when this is happening. So we'll be putting together new resources, new programs for you to report to us. What have you done? How are you doing it? And brag to your neighbors. We want you to brag about the work that you're doing in your homes because it's important. We want you, when you have made the choice to get gas out of your house, not because of the environment even, but because you want to breathe better, we want you to tell us. We want you to share that information with your neighbors. So we're going to be working on ways to get this bigger collective action happening because we can't make it happen. You have to. So we'll be working to create that joint campaign with the public about how we share about how these things are going. So we'll be putting that together. But the way that you're going to know that this is working is you're going to breathe better. You're going to have better transit times because you're going to be taking public transportation. You're going to be riding your bike. You're going to be healthier. You're going to be happier. And the city of Alexandria will be more affordable. Those are real metrics that you'll be able to see, that you'll be able to feel in the city because it's affecting us now. We have programs that are showing change on adaptation, like flood mitigation and other things. You're already seeing improvements in the city because of the investments the city is making. You're going to continue to see those, but the next big leap in that, it's on the public to take action as well.
That's great. Now, there's two final questions, and they're somewhat related. If people really do a lot of energy efficiency, if they electrify their homes, and the electrification grid, the grid is still using, gas and coal, are they shooting themselves in the foot, as Rose would say? And the second question is, if someone's skeptical about the city's ability to address climate change or about climate change in general, what are you hearing from citizens, and what kinds of information have people said might change their minds about doing something? So, two-parter.
Can I answer the grid question?
Go for it.
So all of, another thing that action you can take is, back in 2020, we passed in Richmond the Virginia Clean Economy Act. That is supposed to get us to zero carbon by 2045. Unfortunately, we had an election since then, and some of the folks aren't that interested in supporting the Virginia Clean Economy Act. We also passed the Solar Freedom Act, which allowed you to put, more solar panels on your house. Also the Clean Car Act, which encouraged more people to produce clean cars, electric vehicles in Alexandria. Okay, so if we continue down the road we're currently going with the current legislators, or, folks that deny climate change or think that we need to continue to burn fossil fuel as much and as possible, we won't get there, and it will be a problem. You will be plugging your electric car in and encouraging coal and natural gas burning. So
Okay.
that's not a good
Thank
thing.
you. Does anybody else want to tackle those two questions?
We're constrained on time, so I won't go into it, but go ahead.
No.
Oh, well, grid modernization is probably the number one issue that we need to tackle. We can electrify all day, but if our grid can't handle the additional load, we have a serious problem. It's like we have to do it in parallel. We have to change our behavior. We have to change our purchasing choices, but we also have to do investments and prioritizing our grid modernization strategy. And that starts at the state level, expands to our different energy markets, and then at large really relies on FERC to hold feet to the fire. But it requires the constituency to really understand this. And if we're taking this one other element, I'm just going to dive one more leap in. We have an entire tribal nation community that is underserved, where the majority of these nation peoples are not on the grid. We have to help all of us come up. We have to move the starting line. We have to enable place-based strategies that allow everyone to sustainably live off our grid modernization plans. Start with that.
Thank you. There's several other things here. There's been a lot of questions too. If buildings are the problem, why density? Now, next month, we're going to have a whole program on zoning for housing and density. And so I hope that some of you will bring up the issues of, does it matter for the climate? Are these things impervious surface? That sort of thing. But I think what I'd like to do is to just ask each of our panelists to give us some final words for our program. And we will have at Agenda Alexandria some links for all of you. Ryan?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start by answering the question about skepticism. So you can be a skeptic about climate change. You can be a skeptic about whether or not our actions are going to have enough impact to save the world. That's fine. But if you're thinking about you and your neighbors, you should still take these simple actions, right? You can save money on your utility bill. You don't have to give Dominion and Washington Gas all of your money. You can save money. You can make investment in your house that make you more comfortable and that make you spend less money. You can do that. And that's a reason to improve your home. You can make decisions to use non-gas appliances, not because you care about the environment, but because you care about you, right? Having a gas stove is bad for your health. Having a gas furnace is bad for your health. We can prove that's the case by doing combustion appliance zone testing in your home. When you turn on your furnace and your water heater is running and your dryer is running and your bath vent fan is running, you're pushing air out of your house and pulling it in at the same time, and it comes in the flue. You're pulling in poisonous gases into your home. That's dangerous. You don't do that with your electric appliances. So you don't have to believe in all of this. You don't have to believe that the city can save the world because there's, the emissions from other countries that are going to be there. There's emissions from Philadelphia that are going to be bigger than Alexandria's emissions. So why should we care? We should care because of you and your neighbors. We can make those choices. Gas-emitting appliances destroy our environment here because it's coming out of the top of your house, and then that's our air quality. We've had fewer red air quality days, almost no air quality days, since the shutdown of the Potomac River Generating Station until the Canadian wildfires hit. That is why we take these actions. That's why it matters to us. That's why it should matter to you, because we can make a difference. It does make a difference here and in our community. So you don't have to believe climate change. You don't have to believe your action is going to change the world. It's probably not going to change the grand scheme of the world and climate change, but it is going to change Alexandria, and it is going to matter to you. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what matters. And if you're one of 53,000, then it makes a huge difference. If you're 1% of the 95%, that makes a huge difference. So these do make a difference. And that's why this is so important. That's why this is plastered all over my office, because every single one of these helps us get to where we need to be. So be a skeptic, that's fine, but think about your own health. Because if you're being selfish, you're still going to make the same choices as if you're trying to do this for the environment.
And your neighbor's health.
Absolutely.
Rose?
I would say, as Alexandrian citizens, we should plan, especially when it comes to this clean energy transition. Don't wait until your water heater dies. Don't make it these emergency purchases that removes the power that you have as a consumer out of your hands and forces you to just get the cheapest thing that's a replacement and not the thing that has a payback just as little time, but is going to be more efficient and more beneficial in the long term. I'd also want to paint a picture for you. Imagine cooking a Thanksgiving dinner or a family dinner and not sweating. That was the one thing I just loved. I didn't have to sweat over the stovetop when I transitioned to my induction cooktop. There was not one bead of sweat. My husband, he was just like, we could cook all day. We could do this all day. Oh, you want seconds? Fine, cool, whatever. Oh, you want me to heat this up? I can boil my water in 90 seconds. Wonderful just opportunities with these new technologies. I would say explore, touch, feel. Most manufacturers have showrooms on the East Coast. Go, figure it out, see what you like, test it out. Ask someone to send you a little induction, what did you call them? Hubs. Hubs or burners or whatever. And try them out. Make this a fun type of upgrade experience. It's any type, I don't know about you guys, I love to shop. So just try it on, I guess I would say. And then last thing, be the informed consumer. Always go in doing your homework. I think everyone probably here knows that, but I want to reinforce that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just say in the Rewiring America website, they have a checklist there of all the questions you want to ask your contractor if you're going to replace your gas furnace with a heat pump. So they've really kind of listened to consumers saying, what do you need? What do you need? Oh, I need a checklist. How do I know I'm getting a good deal from, a guy who comes in and tries to sell me a new heat pump? And so they've provided 3 different checklists for you to pick and choose from. And I will tell you a quick story as far as my experience. I used to go, and one of the first times I went in front of city council to speak in the open mic, and I talked about the climate crisis many, many years ago, right after I'd gotten my solar panels. And I told them about putting solar panels in my house and how great it was, and that I had a $7 a month electric bill. And I left the podium, and all the people in the audience applauded, and I was like stunned because, you're not supposed to do that in City Hall, first of all. And, like I said, I was just shocked. So, it just goes to show, I want you to have that wonderful feeling of everybody around you cheering you when you go and do something like that. So I want, that would be great if everybody did that too.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'd like you to thank our panelists for really an excellent. I think you can see that the city is in great hands with volunteers and professionals like this. Thank you very much. If I didn't ask your question, we'll have more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary. You did a great job moderating. I want to make one more announcement. Agenda Alexandria is not done with this topic yet. As some of you may know, we started in the past year or so doing a companion podcast to our live programs, and the podcast is called On the Agenda. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll be interviewing Jason Samenow, the weather editor for the Washington Post. Jason's going to be talking about his forecast as to what climate change will actually do to the Alexandria environment, particularly the waterfront, but also some other low-lying neighborhoods. It'll be a 20-minute interview. We'll edit it, but it'll probably be up in like 48 hours on our website, so you can go and listen to the podcast On the Agenda with Jason Samenow of the Washington Post. Anyway, Mary, thank you. Our panelists were great. Thank you all for being here, though. You are the agenda. And come back next month on October 23rd for our session on zoning for housing.
This is Agenda Alexandria, a nonpartisan organization that takes a look at the issues without taking sides. Whether it's the city's sewer system, education, public safety, climate change, or perhaps a look back into Alexandria's history, Agenda Alexandria is here to shine a light. What makes the organization so successful is our people. The people who run it, our panelists, our moderators, and of course, our members. Agenda Alexandria is a member-funded organization, and we invite you to become one today by visiting agendaalexandria.org.